complimentary style sessions, 1 hour to 1.5 hour style sessions to help you start building your style. And he was the first one, so we have 9 more slots available. What I was talking about is there's sometimes that guys go out and they actually aren't trying to talk to chicks. Now, when we're young, like it feels like every time that we're out, we're trying to bag a chick, bag a young lady. Um, but there was a time, probably this might have been like 8 or 9 years ago. It was my birthday. I wasn't seeing anybody. I wasn't really trying to kick it with anybody. I just wanted to go because my birthday is in April. I wanted to go watch the tournament championship, and I just wanted to enjoy the game and eat some food. And so I ended up going to Hooters because I wouldn't mind looking at somebody. I'm not lying out here. So I went to Hooters um, and was just kicking it. Now, was I in something like this? No, but I was in something like a jacket, a pair of trousers, like no jeans or anything like that. I was casually elegant, we'll say, right? And this young lady came up and approached me, and I was receptive, but I wasn't necessarily interested. We got a number. We talked for like 3 days, and then that was kind of the 3 or 4 days, and that was kind of the extent of it. But I started to realize when I would go out, sometimes I may throw on a tweed jacket. Like this is a Donegal tweed finish. So it looks this looks just interesting. But if I throw on a Harris tweed or a classic tweed jacket, it is a rough, a coarse fabric. And so a lot of people look at that as a prickly fabric. It was used in the countryside for hunting. It's what you would wear if you needed to move through thorny areas historically, especially when you were hunting big patch pockets. It was a more tactical element, tactical piece that you would wear. So if you throw that on, you can still look really, really nice. Actually, you could throw that on with a pair of corduroy trousers, a great flannel dress shirt or casual shirt, button down, and it looks very elegant. But it looks relatively not off-putting, but abrasive, like literally. And so, because of that, usually, like when guys are wearing tweeds, I usually tell them they need to soften the look one way or the other because otherwise it comes off as an abrasive piece. And then if you throw on oud cologne by nature, by its nature, has a very pungent and funky type of smell. Usually that's why oud is paired with something else, usually sweeter, spicier to offset that smell. So if you were to throw on a more oud forward smell, it's not going to smell bad, but you will smell different, interesting. Versus when you put on a floral, like for instance, if you were to put on Tom Ford's Black Orchid, just because I think a lot of people smelled that, that is a very strong, pungent smell, but it's intriguing, it's alluring, it draws the person in, and it makes you want to inquire about that person. But if you were to wear a oud and the oud is more pungent, you're not going to be approached the same way, right? So if you pair that, and I may mention to you, if you're out smoking a cigar, then that smoky smell will actually pair well with the oud, but it's not something that's attractive. So I hope that made sense. Oh, I think I lost Style Jumper once again.
Nah, man, I'm still here.
All right. Do you have any thoughts there?
No, I think that interesting. You know, you and Vlad are more on the perfumery, if you will, or the fragrance side of things. I like the play that you talked about. It's interesting when it comes to the Donegal tweeds and the herringbones and things like that. How, to your point, abrasive it may look or textured it may look, and how do you soften it? And one of the things I like to share with guys too, making it softer with the contrast of a solid color. Like like I have on today, right? So I have on like this orange, even though it's bright, it still contrasts enough to kind of to give it some balance, if you will. and then not being so heavy looking, to your point, almost like Brillo pad. You know what I mean? Like when we grew up, Brillo pad looks so abrasive. And if you have on a look like that, then sometimes you may look like, especially if you're trying to holler at someone, like, man, I don't even know if I want to rub up against this guy. You know what I mean? So it
Yeah,
won't be
most definitely.
run their stockings or run their body around you because what you're wearing is so coarse.
Right.
But definitely, I think solid colors tend to balance it off quite a bit.
All right. And just so you guys, this is what you get when you join the Menswear Mastermind. You have custom with myself. You have classic with our man Vladimir Roche, and this is casual and color with Style Jumper. So all three of us are avid students, but probably more aware, experts in our given space, just with the amount of studying. So you can always join again, patreon.com/menswear mastermind, where you can continue to build on your style. Styles over 60 said, "Hey, Style Jumper, what's going on?"
What's up, Bunk? Appreciate you.
So Styles over 60 asks, "Are nubuck and suede shoes one and the same? They are the same, but completely different."
Elaborate, sir.
So a nubuck is a finish on your suede shoes. So a nubuck is a process where they smooth out the suede. They take all of the top fibers off of the suede so that it's smooth. You can have nubucks. They typically tend to be white, but or light colored, but you can have numerous colors of nubuck suedes. And suede outside of, and it's also, I believe, taken from a different part of the cow or the leather. So it's going to wear different, look different, but suede is just the type of leather that you're using, because most all leather is suede. um all suede isn't leather, I think, I think that's right. um so that's what you see when you're looking at the difference. There is, you may have some differences in the finish and the presentation.
So I'll do a little country approach to this. So when you have your suede, when you rub across the suede, it almost like it'll be changing colors a little bit, right? So it has more movement, if you will, versus that new book. It's more tight. It's almost like more of a manicured lawn versus, you know what I mean? Like real close to the grain, if you will, versus having like, you know, some like people who have waves, you either have like the waves that's super low to your head, and those people who have those big giant waves on their hair. Complete. That's in my opinion, if I'm looking at it, that's how I would approach it. One is a really close leather, really tight, beautiful finish, manicured look. The suede, the traditional suede, if you will, if you rub across it, it'll change from like a lighter or a darker, if you will, and you can kind of see that imprint within the movement.
I like that. I like that. I hope that answers your question. Stylist over 60. Uh, he said, "Great insight. Appreciate that. Never thought about tweed that way. You still need to put me on the summer tweeds fabrics." So another question that was asked in the snapshot of style was about summer tweed. So people have this misconception that tweed is a winter fabric, just like they have a misconception that jeans are denim. And all jeans aren't going to be denim. All tweeds don't necessarily have to be um, winter driven. So remember that tweed is a weave. It's a finish. It's a weave, but you could also say it's the finished feeling or texture that you're going to wear. So you can make a linen tweed. You can make a cotton tweed. It's not going to wear well, but you could make one. You could make a wool tweed that's going to be extremely light. You would need like a 7 gram, or I'm sorry, a 7 ounce fabric something that's extremely light that's going to flow well. Otherwise, anything that's 3 or 4 seasons is probably going to get too hot. But that's essentially what a summer tweed is. It's not a fabric. Like something interesting happened, style jumper, that I've started to notice is that a lot of guys have this misconception about wool. They still tend to think that wool is going to be hot, and they forget that you can have um, all types of different wools, right? You can
Hmm.
have Australian wool that tends to be worn more in the summertime. You could have a 4 season wool, Super 130s, double twist, great fabric that a company called Ariston does, is a 4 season. A cotton gabardine, a wool gabardine can be a 4 season piece. So wool is just the fabric, right? It's just the fiber, and the yarn that's woven. You can be worn numerous different types of ways with weights and different finishes.
So this is the key, I think, also with being a part of the Menswear Mastermind. Because someone like yourself, who has such an infinite knowledge or a vast amount of knowledge when it comes to fabrics and customs. So, guys, this was happening. Like when we grow up, if you will, or when we're learning about clothing, we're only thinking about, a lot of us, the baseline fabrics and the baseline of what we were taught. Or like when you were young, wool is heavy, or it depends on where you grew up, what that means. And some people are afraid of wool because they've had like a memory of wearing something that's really coarse, you know what I mean, or really heavy. So we're not really taught on a day-to-day basis about the different weights of wool. We're not thinking about geographically what that looks like, regionally, even globally. So to Star Architect's point, it's not just one thing or one type of wool or one type of weight. There are all these different variances of this type of fabric. So we really appreciate that. Star Kitch, can you hear me? I feel like I lost your audio real quick. Might
Oh,
be my.
can you hear me now?
There we go. Yes, sir.
For some reason it muted me. Okay. Um, yeah, so great questions. Feel free to keep on asking these questions. Stylish over 60, Key, you guys may be the folks who get their questions answered. Listen, we got like 6 minutes. I can already tell how this is about to play out, like it always does.
Yep.
I have 10 questions at 8:24. Let's not do that, fellas. Let's ask our questions now. If you got a question, ask it.
Well, something you were talking a little bit earlier. Um, at my work today, I had a gentleman came in from London, and he complimented the sport coat today, and he was like, "Man, that looks very British." You know what I mean? And so
Mhm.
it immediately, he just got here from London, an older gentleman in his late 50s, early 60s. And it's just interesting when someone from a geographical area can identify a garment. And garments are, I like to say, nostalgic. They bring back memories. They also bring people closer to home based on where they're from. And if they're
Mhm.
traveling, just to see someone in a similar garment or something that they would see back home brings that resonant of enjoyment. And so that's a connection point. Again, we talk about the way that we dress and what we wear has its own style of communication, if you will, without you even opening your mouth. I didn't have to say anything to this gentleman, but by him acknowledging and seeing it, it brought him to a space of peace, connection, conversation. And so again, we're all about nonverbal communication. And so remember, whatever you wear is speaking whether you open your mouth or not, and how you stand, your stance, your posture. And so all those things need to be relative, how you communicate verbally, but also physically. So keep that in mind, fellas.
Great points. Great points. Wanted to see if we had any more questions. All right, guys. Oh, here I knew that was coming. I
So,
knew it
so
was
Scott,
coming.
Oh,
Pause.
you see a question?
Yep.
There it is.
What does a tipped collar and sleeves on a polo communicate to you? Formal, preppy, etc. Uh, tipped collar. Are you saying like a trimmed collar? I'm not sure what you're asking there, Key. Can you elaborate a little bit? If you're talking about a tipped collar or trimmed collar in that regard, or the stitching on a collar, like there's a lot of ways for me to position that. I can say it's going to play casual. Anything that's added to anything like it's gonna be more casual.
So yeah, to your point, it's the architect. So a tip collar is a contrast collar. You know, like maybe you have your full collar, and then right at the tip or right at the edges is a contrasting color.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're mentioning, like he's asking, formal or prep. Definitely prep, in my opinion. Definitely more casual. It's just a play on the collars, particularly when you're wearing a polo with the sleeve, and it gives you an opportunity too to use that contrast color for your opposite color if you decide to go that route. So, for instance, if you're wearing a navy tip collar that has like a white line around the edges of that um, polo, and the same on your sleeve, then maybe rock some, some white jeans or a pair of white chino, something like that to kind of like contrast. So it's a play on contrast, but definitely, in my opinion, a preppy look. And then depends on what shoes you decide to wear. And we were talking about nubucks. That's another great way to play within that space when it comes to those tip collars and sleeves for a polo.
Yeah, I would say, interestingly enough, context matters. Here's that conversation where context is going to matter. The tipping on a collar 9 times out of 10 actually is going to have more of a retro look. So it's going to look more like 70s, especially depending on the way that the collar's finish. If it's a Johnny Boy collar, depending on how deep the button stance would go on the shirt, all those different types of things can contribute to the look. As far as the subcategories, I would tell you 9 times out of 10, those going to be um, it's going to be something that's casual. Then you can start talking about some nuance into what type of casual that would be. But I would lean on that. Just remember, when it comes to formality, formality is actually about the simplicity of a overall experience that somebody's going to have with you. So that's why when you think about black tie, everybody almost looks the same. When you think about white tie, everybody does look the same. Like there's such strict rules of decorum there. Like the expectation is we are all going to look exactly alike. You don't get to throw on some colorful socks because you felt like it. You have to be in line and in uniform with everybody else. So anything that's going to add more embellishment is usually going to play more casual. That's just a good rule of thumb there.
Popped in a pause, a quick little definition here in the comments as well.
Okay. Um,
8:27, fellas. Crank out those questions.
New subscriber. Oh,
Yo,
salute, brothers. Appreciate you.
appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Oh, and just so you guys know, again, skinheads is not white supremacist. It is a subculture group of like mod punk era and skin. There were plenty of black skinheads in the '80s, so just
Yeah.
bear that in
Rude boys. Yeah.
mind.
And
Zev Kohler asked on IG, "What are the telltale signs of a shopaholic?" Um, this will probably be our last question. I think that the interesting thing about like a shopaholic is somebody who just has no self control. That's the best way I could say it. Like I think we all have tendencies that can make us impulsive. I tend to be very impulsive. But a shopaholic is saying like is abusing their their interactions. It's no different than if somebody goes out to have a drink versus somebody who's drinking in the middle of the day.
To
Um,
get drunk.
well, not even necessarily to get drunk, just because they feel like they need it, right?
True.
So a person in the middle of the day could be drinking, could be a functioning alcoholic. They're not necessarily drunk, but they are under the influence because their body needs it. And so usually there's some sort of psychological element there that's affecting your need for validation, your need for appreciation, any of those different types of things. It's not something where I can say if you go shopping 3 times a day, you're a shopaholic. Probably, but there may be reasons for that. So I would say it's when you can't control your urges.
More on the self discipline side of things.
Yep.
It's a long definition I found. So just kind of like reiterating
Yeah.
that last conversation piece about skinheads. I thought was important for people to not be so put off maybe by skinhead, but kind of give some clear definitions.
Most definitely. All
Eight
right.
thirty, fellas.
Yep. I think, fellas, we have to go ahead and bounce. Because we have to get ready for the Menswear Mastermind. Again, if you want to join, you probably would miss today. Um, but you can still make sure that you join, and that way you can join us next week. We have an amazing presentation by myself. I do say so myself. This evening, but we do Q&As, question and answers, presentations. We are working on having more special guests that are going to be coming through. So there's plenty for you to take advantage of, and it's a dope experience. It's a great time for us to just have conversations around menswear, but also masculinity, manhood, fatherhood, uh, marriage. So you get to have all of these different interactions and engagements that will allow you to continue to grow your style, but also your life. So make sure that you check that out as well. Um, and Style Jumper has a new video coming out this Saturday morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So make sure
Part
you
two. Part two.
all right,
Go
make
get it.
sure you check that out. I got some stuff coming. It's taking me longer than I thought. Pause. That sounded crazy. Um.
Big pause. Pause. All
Uh.
right, fellas, it's 8:31. We got to hop. We got to get on to our Menswear Mastermind. We really appreciate you joining us tonight as we expand our reach from just Instagram into Facebook into YouTube, because we're expanding our reach, and we want to get more of our communities engaged and involved in what we do individually and then collectively. So we look forward to seeing you next week. Anything else you want to add, Star Architects, before we hop for next week?
That's it.
All right, fellas, we'll see you.
Peace.
Peace.